The ocean was calm, but the tension on the deck of the USS Roosevelt felt heavier than the waves below. It was 6:40 a.m. in the South China Sea, a hot zone where every mile was watched, challenged, and sometimes, tested. The crew had just finished routine radar checks when something unexpected flashed across the screen. Lieutenant Jack Reynolds squinted at the monitor. "Sir, we've got a fast-moving contact approaching from the east. Speed suggests a Chinese Type 056 corvette." Captain Harris stepped forward, his voice steady. "Is it broadcasting identification?" "No, sir," Jack replied. "And it's closing in, fast." The captain didn't yell. He didn't panic. He simply said, "All stations, condition 2. Eyes open. We're not blinking first." Sailors moved into position, adrenaline rising but discipline holding strong. The Roosevelt had been through harassment maneuvers before, but something about this one felt different. More aggressive. More deliberate. Suddenly, a voice crackled over the radio in heavily accented English. "Unidentified U.S. vessel, you are trespassing in Chinese territorial waters. Change course immediately." Jack muttered under his breath, "Here we go." Captain Harris nodded at the communications officer. "Respond." A calm American voice echoed back, "This is the USS Roosevelt, operating in international waters under freedom of navigation protocols. We will continue our course." Minutes later, the Chinese warship broke through the morning fog, slicing the water like a shark. It wasn't just nearby, it was too close. Crew members on both ships could almost see each other's faces. Jack's heartbeat kicked harder. "Sir, they're not slowing down." Captain Harris stared ahead, eyes cold, voice firm. "Helm," he said. "Hold course." That's when everything changed. The Chinese ship made an unexpected move, swinging toward the Roosevelt at dangerous speed. A collision wasn't just possible now, it was seconds away. And then, "Brace!" Jack shouted instinctively, gripping the console as alarms blared across the USS Roosevelt. The Chinese corvette swung hard toward their starboard side, water spraying high as its bow cut dangerously close. But instead of impact, the Chinese vessel veered away at the very last moment, intentionally close, an intimidation tactic. Gasps broke across the crew, but no one spoke. They didn't need to. Everyone understood the message, "We dare you to react." Captain Harris exhaled slowly. "Not fear, control. Maintain course," he ordered. "We don't play their game." The Chinese ship now ran parallel, barely a few hundred yards away. Its crew stood watching, cameras rolled, ready to broadcast any U.S. retaliation across the world. A loudspeaker crackled from their deck, shouting warnings in Mandarin, then repeating in English, "U.S. ship, alter course or face consequences." Jack glanced at the captain. "Sir, are we just going to let them ride our shadow?" Harris didn't blink. "They want escalation. We're not giving it." But then something unexpected happened. A second blip appeared on radar. Another Chinese warship. Then a third. Jack's mind raced. "Sir, they're surrounding us." Tension tightened across the bridge like a noose. 3 Chinese vessels now formed a loose arc around the Roosevelt, herding them, testing them. Any wrong move could trigger a diplomatic explosion, or worse, a real one. "Communications," Harris said, voice low. "Open a channel to 7th Fleet Command. Situation just escalated." Jack's fingers trembled slightly as he continued monitoring the Chinese ships. He thought of his family back home, watching the news, unaware he might be part of the next global headline. Suddenly, the closest Chinese ship blared a loud siren and began drifting inward again, closer than before. Deliberately provocative. This time, too close to ignore. Jack looked at the captain. "Sir, if they push further, are we allowed to respond?" Captain Harris's jaw tightened. There was a thin line between restraint and weakness. He picked up the intercom. "All hands," he said calmly. "Prepare for potential defensive maneuvering." The crew froze in readiness. But before any action could be taken, another voice entered the battlefield. A voice neither side expected. The sudden transmission cut through the rising tension like a bolt of electricity. "This is United States Navy aircraft, call sign Eagle 7, currently overhead. Chinese vessels, any hostile maneuver will be recorded and reported to international authorities." Jack's eyes shot upward. Through the bridge windows, the distant roar of jet engines became clearer. An American F-A-18 fighter had entered the scene, circling high above both fleets like a watchful guardian. One of the Chinese ships immediately slowed, its aggressive posture slightly easing. The second followed suit, though still maintaining a close presence. The third, however, held course stubbornly, refusing to back off. Captain Harris remained composed. "Good timing," he muttered. Then, over the radio, he said, "Eagle 7, this is USS Roosevelt. Multiple PLA Navy ships attempting coercive maneuvering. We're holding course under lawful navigation." The jet pilot replied, voice firm, "Copy that, Roosevelt. You're covered. Chinese vessels, your actions are being monitored." Jack let out the breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. But relief didn't have time to settle. Because the most defiant Chinese ship suddenly accelerated again, edging closer, as if testing whether the Roosevelt would flinch now that air support had arrived. "Sir, they're pushing again," Jack said sharply. Captain Harris stepped forward, calm but eyes intense. "Eagle 7, they're attempting another close intercept." The pilot's tone sharpened. "Acknowledged. Authorizing low pass." Jack watched the sky. Seconds later, the F-18 swooped downward in a thunderous flyby right above the water, just between the U.S. ship and the Chinese vessel. The shockwave rattled the deck and sent spray shooting upward like a wall of water. Even the most hardened sailors on the Chinese ship jerked back in surprise. For a moment, silence ruled the sea. Then, over radio, a new Chinese voice came through, colder, controlled, but clearly unsettled. "U.S. ship, your presence is noted. You will leave soon." Captain Harris replied without hesitation. "We leave when our mission is complete." The Chinese vessels held their positions, still present, but no longer advancing. However, Jack couldn't shake a chilling thought. They hadn't forced the U.S. ship to retreat today, but what if this was just the beginning? And then something unexpected appeared on the horizon. But it wasn't a ship. It was smoke. Jack's gaze locked onto the distant plume of smoke rising from the horizon. "Is that a distress signal?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. Sensors confirmed it seconds later. An unknown civilian vessel was in trouble, possibly an engine fire. Its location? Right on the edge of the contested waters. Captain Harris didn't hesitate. "Helm, redirect to the distress coordinates. Notify the Chinese ships of our humanitarian course." The Roosevelt shifted direction smoothly, but the Chinese vessels reacted immediately. One moved to shadow them again, but this time, it hesitated. Within minutes, the burning ship came into full view, a small fishing vessel, flames licking across the stern. People were waving frantically from the deck. "Heat signatures confirm survivors," Jack reported. Harris nodded. "Launch rescue team." As U.S. sailors deployed rescue boats into the water, the crew worked with practiced precision. The A-18 circled protectively overhead, maintaining a silent warning to anyone thinking of interference. Then, something unexpected occurred. One of the Chinese ships also launched a small rescue craft. For a moment, neither side made an aggressive move. Instead, they both approached the same target, civilians in danger. Jack watched, stunned, as U.S. and Chinese rescue teams moved almost in parallel, pulling frightened fishermen from the smoke-filled deck. There were no threats shouted now, only shared urgency. Minutes later, the survivors were safe. The radio crackled softly with a message from the Chinese captain. "Rescue operation, complete. We are withdrawing." Captain Harris responded simply, "Acknowledged." As the Chinese ships slowly turned away, Jack felt the tension lift like fog burning off in morning light. The Roosevelt continued its course, mission intact, but something deeper lingered in the air. Conflict had nearly exploded into chaos. Yet in a moment of crisis, humanity had forced both sides to remember something bigger than borders. Jack stood at the deck, watching the last trace of smoke fade away, and whispered to himself, "Sometimes, the real victory is avoiding the war you almost fought." The ocean remained silent. But everyone on board knew, they just lived a day that would never make headlines, but should have.